I see people on my timeline posting Klance so casually now, like we weren't there in the trenches fighting guerrilla warfare over a ship that had 30 minutes screen time max. Hey, it's Allie. Welcome back to my channel. Happy Pride, be who you are. Okay, happy Pride. And I want to say a very happy special Pride to my trans folk out there. I want you to know you are loved, you are valid. This will always be a safe space for you. And if you are confused and are transphobic, get the fuck off of my page. And I'm sure that J.K. Rowling's black mold would have a word with you. Anyway, y'all remember Klance? Klance was a popular, and I do mean a popular ship between the characters of Keith and Lance from the hit show Voltron Legendary Defender. And this Pride Month, I wanted to cover ships that I believe to be iconic, and not just iconic and they did a lot for us, okay? Otherwise we'd be talking about Garnet from Steven Universe. I mean iconic as in they are infamous, as in the fandom and the ship itself has so much good and bad and controversy to it that it takes you for a ride. And I think that we can learn something from it, both as a fandom and as queer people alike. Like, are we not queer if we aren't messy? And so, first up on the docket, of course, we have Klance, a ship so infamous and so controversial that people to this day still do not know if it was queerbaiting or not. So let's take a little trip down memory lane, a little messy trip, if you will, and figure out what the fuck was going on with Klance. If at any time you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe because I make videos like this all the time, and comment down below, number one, do you like the setup? I figure I could put stuff here, like I can have something here, like a picture or something, and then I can have something on the walls. And then also, while you're down there, let me know if you like Klance, if you hated Klance, if you didn't even know what Klance was. I did, of course, send out a form, an anonymous form, like I always do, and that helped me shape how people feel about Klance nowadays and how people felt about Klance back then, whether or not they thought it was queerbaiting, etc., etc. But of course, I did that last minute, as I always do. So if you didn't get to, fill that out, put it down in the comments below. And also let me know what other ships you would like me to do this month. I'm going to try to get a video out every week this month with a new ship. So if you have like some Willa ships or any ships, any type of ship, well, they have to be queer, sorry. Just let me know down in the comments below, and hey, let's just jump into it.
He'd be Sendak's prisoner right now if not for Pidge. Well, you wouldn't have survived the explosion if Hunk and Karan hadn't gotten a new crystal.
Wow, thanks everybody. It sounds like the mice did more than you, though. I punched Sendak! Yeah, apparently after I emerged from a coma and shot his arm off. We had a bonding moment. I cradled you in my arms. Nope, don't remember. Didn't happen.
Disclaimer. All of my knowledge of the ship is from my own first-hand account of what went down while I was in this fandom from beginning to very end. Therefore, I might miss some things or get something wrong. You are, of course, always free to correct me in the comments as long as you are respectful about it. The second you are not respectful, your comment's just gonna get deleted, babes. Okay, I don't care. This is not a democracy. Okay, I am a dictator, much like our current government. Anyway, what is Voltron? Voltron Legendary Defender was a DreamWorks cartoon released in Netflix in 2016 in June, by the way. Yeah, June. It follows 5 pilots from a pilot academy called the Garrison as they get tossed into space and are tasked with, shocker, defending it, shocker, from an evil empire race called the Galrans, who want to take over the universe or something, I don't know. And I want to quickly go back over the very first episode because it is like from the jump almost, it feels like Lance as a character was set up to be kind of like this main guy that we are going to be following. Obviously, everybody gets their moment to shine, right? That's a lie. That's literally a lie, actually. That's just a straight up fucking lie. We're already off to an amazing start now. I meant that everybody was supposed to get their time to shine. It's an ensemble cast, but Lance being the first character that we meet and the first like standout personality, I think is like pretty poignant and pretty like we're supposed to be following him and like we're supposed to keep an eye on him. I don't think that like, and especially in the first couple seasons it was really about Pidge and Allura, but like I think that we were supposed to keep an eye on him. Like we were supposed to be like, okay, like he's someone that we need to like follow for a while. So let's get into the first episode. Lance, Hunk, and Pidge are all pilots at the space cadet academy thingy majig. Lance is not that good at flying, like, at all. He only got into the fighter pilot part of the program, like they have other ones too. He was a cargo pilot before, and he only got into the program because a certain somebody else was expelled from the program, so a spot opened up. And right here, right away, I bet you can guess who that other person was. The teacher immediately is like, hey, you don't want to end up like this person who is a lot better than you, right? You don't want to get expelled. He got expelled for like disciplinary reasons, right? And so they're just like, Lance, you don't want to get expelled for the same thing, because Lance kind of has those issues. Definitely different than the person we'll talk about later, but he also kind of has those issues, like class clown type of vibes. He has an eccentric personality, you know. Immediately he's getting compared to this other person, and immediately he does not like that. Like, it's very clear, it strikes a chord with him, the fact that he constantly is getting compared to this other person. But another side we see to Lance is the fact that he wants to be there, like, so badly. Like, even when Paige is about to tell that guy off for saying shit about what was basically her family. Now at this point no one knows that that is her family up there, but like when she was about to tell that man off for saying shit about her family, because the whole thing, let's back up a little, is the fact that Shiro, who was a top pilot in this academy, and Samuel and I don't remember the other guy's name, but they're both, it's a father and son duo, went up into space. They were like top of their class, top of their class and then researcher. I don't know. We'll get to all that in a second. Don't even worry about it. But they go up into space, and they go into deep space, the furthest any human has ever been, and then they go missing. Now, the show does show us what happens to them. They get abducted by Gorans, but obviously the people on Earth don't know that. So when Pidge was about to square up, like, you don't know what the fuck happened to my family, because again, nobody knows why this tiny little boy, because she's dressed as a boy in this case, is about to fight this teacher. Lance is like, hey, let's not. Immediately, Lance and Hunk have, like, you know, history. Pidge, not so much. Pidge is the outsider in this, like, trio, right? But Lance, like, immediately is like, we're family. We're family, we're a team, we're family, and we should stick together, which is why they all go out that night to, like, do shenanigans, right? And then they see a meteor or something fall from the sky. Pidge had been picking up some weird readings because they're the tech person, of course, and Shiro is in this thing that, like, has fallen from the sky. And so they're like, we need to go check out this thing. And then, however, they see this guy, and this guy is on, like, a motorcycle, and he's also zooming towards this crash site. And everyone's like, who's this guy? Except for Lance. Because Lance immediately recognizes it as Keith. Now, Keith has this, like, goggles on. He has, like, a mask on because, you know, dusty, they're in the middle of a desert. So how, you may ask, did Lance recognize Keith? His hair. He says, like, and I quote, "I would recognize that mullet anywhere." What do you mean by that? But, like, yeah, Lance, what do you mean by that, brother?
That guy's always trying to one-up me.
Who is it?
Keith!
Who? Are you sure?
Oh, I'd recognize that mullet anywhere.
Yeah, you recognized him by his mullet and his mullet only. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a thing that normal people do. Yeah, absolutely. So they get to this place and they see that Shiro is the one that crash landed in this mysterious alien ship, right? And he's being delirious. This doesn't largely matter for what we're about to say, just the setup of everything. So Keith wants to save Shiro because he has history with Shiro. Lance also wants to save Shiro because, well, he just wants to save Shiro. He looks up to him. Like, he's a senior in this place. He still goes to this school as far as we know. We will get to all that later. Don't you worry. But Lance also wants to save Shiro. And he also wants to save Shiro to not be one up by Keith. And Keith is like, what are you talking about, my guy? And he's like, don't act like we don't have a rivalry. And Keith is like, I don't know who you are. And thus begins their one-sided rivalry to friends, to enemies, to friends, to enemies, to friends, to lovers. You know, frenemies, as one would say. And it's actually quite cute because Keith is this very, like, lone wolf type of guy, very autistic coded, very, like, I just want to be on my own because it's easier that way. I don't want to open my heart to anybody. I've been alone all my life. Why would that change now? Blah, 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 blah. And as the show goes on, through mostly Lance and a little bit of pushing from Shiro, which, look at all that, don't worry. I know I keep saying it, but don't worry. Shiro's here for a reason, okay? With mostly pushing from Lance, he starts to come out of his shell, and this takes the form of, like, banter between Lance and Keith. So you can see why people started to ship them together. Hello, red and blue. Yeah. We'll get to that too, don't worry. So like I said, they were the most popular ship from day one. However, just because they were the most popular does not mean that they were the only one. Enter Shiro. Shiro, oh my sweet, 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 sweet boy, Shiro. Shiro was a character who was also shipped with Keith, and he was the senior of these two. Now, he also went to this garrison, and right here off the bat, I'm going to say this. People shipped Shiro and Keith together a lot. It was called Sheath. Now, the real ones shipped Shiro, Keith, and Lance. That's where it was really at, okay? It was called Chance, I believe. That's where it was really at, yeah. Or is it Shikance? Shikance? No, because Chance is Shiro and Keith. No, Lance. Shiro and Lance. So wouldn't Shikance? Shikance? Is that the name of the ship? Anyway, whatever. The real ones know that it was the three of them. However, there was a how do I say this? Like a little bit of like controversy with the ship, as there always is, namely with the age gap between Shiro and Keith. However, this is season 1 we're talking about, and we're not jumping the shark just yet. So a lot of people shipped them. We knew that Shiro was older. We just didn't know exactly how much older. And considering that he also went to this garrison with everybody else, we were like, and they purposely kept his age very vague for a long time until the very end of the show, which I believe, in my tinfoil hat theory, was very, very deliberate. But we'll get to that. We're not jumping the shark just yet. And so, of course, when there is two ships, especially between two characters that share a ship, right? There's bound to be some ship wars, okay? This isn't the first rodeo. This isn't the first fandom ever made, all right? We knew ship wars were going to happen. They happen over anything and everything, right? But there was just something about the Voltron fandom at this time, coming up in 2016, that just felt different, okay? Like, felt very, very different than what had come before. And so while in the very, very beginning of the fandom, there wasn't too much of an issue. Like, obviously, people were like, well, I like this ship, and I don't like this ship, and yada, 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 and my ship is better than your ship. That happens all the time. We will start to see, as time goes on, a little bit of a shift in the internet landscape of fandom. I do believe that this was the start of just fandoms in general becoming a lot more chronically online, with the slow inevitable death of Tumblr and people moving over to Twitter and just a lot more people having access to the internet. We started to see this like slow decline of like fandom etiquette and morals. And a lot of people, like, you know, like Coley does things. She was a person who talked about this in her Voltron video, but a lot of people cite Voltron as one of the fandoms that started this whole fandom etiquette downfall. This and like My Hero Academia, which also came out in 2016 in the West. So I don't know what was going on in 2016. Actually, I do. It's the same thing that's happening now. What is the correlation between what was happening in 2016 and what's happening now? I wonder what the correlation is. It couldn't be our government. No. We no longer need economics to decide recession indicators. Just look at the state of fandom. And I'll say this, like, self-righteousness that fandom started to take on in 2016 kind of died down right before 2020. And then, of course, 2020 happened and it all ramped right back up. And then, of course, we are where we are now. See my last video. Suddenly, you couldn't enjoy a ship. You had to be fighting on the front fucking lines of that ship, okay? Every single time someone slandered that ship, you better be there in the comments. Otherwise, are you a real Klance stripper if you're not there in the comments? I saw a post on Tumblr the other day when I was going through the Klance tag for the first time in like years, and someone who is into a different fandom made a very good point. They were pointing out like similarities that they were seeing in their own fandom. It was like some Chinese drama, and they were pointing out how Klance started this thing of like shipping to be an anti-shipper. Like, people who shipped Klance or shipped Sheath simply to hate on Klance or to hate on Sheath. Like, you may not even have cared for the ship, but all of a sudden, because you saw something that you didn't like, or somebody said something to you that you didn't like, now you're a Klancer. But you're a Klancer because you hate the Sheathers, or you're a Sheather because you hate the Klancers. No one's really actually in this, not anyone, but like, you know, a lot of people weren't really in this ship for the sake of the ship. It was more like, I'm here so I can be above you, so I can attack you. And that person made such a good point with that, and I hope that their fandom is okay. It probably isn't, knowing the internet right now. Now, as a person, of course, who shipped Lance with literally almost every single character in that fucking show, I personally was like, I don't care. I ship all of it. So I saw this, but I never participated in it. Why? Because again, I did not care. I shipped Lance with literally everybody, bro. Lance and Hunk, Lance and Keith, Lance and bro, every single one of it. Lance and Alora, I shipped them too. Do I think their relationship needed a lot more work? We'll get to that later. But Klance was the dominant species, I guess you could say. And it was definitely one of the figureheads in this online era of you can't just like this thing, you have to be morally and superiorly correct about liking this thing, and anything you don't like is inferior and morally bad, and you are a bad person for shipping or liking this thing era. And Voltron, of course, by no means was the first fandom to have this type of issues homestuck, but it was one of the first like truly homebrewed online fandoms to get this big and to be this problematic. Like the only other ones I can think of at the time, of course, were My Hero Academia and Steven Universe. And of course, it was also one of the first fandoms that I was there for since day one and saw the rise and fall in real time on Tumblr while it happened. Like Supernatural, Homestuck even, I joined those fandoms after the shit show had already started, okay? But Voltron, I was here since day one, baby. I was ground zero. I was there when the sacred text Dirty Laundry was written, okay? So how did the show progress? And therefore also the fandom. And I say all of this to say that both ships in canon and outside of canon had really good legs to stand on. Apparently there was a Kybal back in the day that somebody made a like a Klance Bible just full of every single interaction that they've ever had. But as I was watching a video that explained that there was this Klance Bible, they mentioned something very interesting. Also, you should go watch that video. I think it's really, really good. They mentioned something very interesting in the fact that like a lot of people scrubbed their shit off the face of the internet after this, like completely scrubbed. There are Klance blogs that don't exist anymore. The posts are still there, the way Tumblr works, the posts are still there, but you can't, the people, they're gone. They're gone. And we'll get to that later in the aftermath of everything, but I think that just goes to show you how like, you know, how bad things got in this fandom with Klance. But I refer to you to this video because I think it's a really good summary of all of the interactions that Klance actually had with each other. This is a 17-minute video, and they go over every single interaction that Klance has had. Yeah, it's not many. It's not many. In the first 3 seasons, which people say to be the best seasons of Voltron, Klance actually had a lot of interactions with each other. So you may be wondering, how can this only be a 17-minute video, right? How can we talk about Klance and there's only like 30 minutes worth of screen time, yet it's the most popular ship comparatively to something like Sheath or even Kalora that had so much more like depth to it. Not Kalora. I said Kalora. I mean, that was a ship too, but like, I meant, Allura? No. What is that ship name? Anyway, Allura and Lance. But going back to the actual show itself, we can actually see why like Lance and Keith were shipped so heavily with each other, especially in these first 3 seasons. We're getting one-sided enemies to friends to lovers to enemies to friends to love. Like I already said that, you get it, right? Lance getting Keith to let down his guard and start actively engaging with the team in their rivalry, I thought was very cute. Now, Lance as a character had always been very emotionally smart, even if he's not like, you know, here smart, which is why he was able to bond with his lion like so quickly. He has that like emotional depth in him that I wish we got to see more of. But that emotional depth going against the brick wall of emotions that was Keith it was chef's kiss. It was chef's kiss all the time. Like Lance would say something like colloquially and Keith would just be like what? Like what? But also we see over time as they start to grow closer to each other, they start to rely on one another. It's almost kind of like they feel the cracks of one another, where Lance might need a little bit more stability and a little bit more like, you know, straightforwardness, and because he's very deeply insecure, which like we'll get to it. Keith is there to offer that like solidness and that like go-getter attitude and that like very high confidence in himself, right? Versus where Keith has a little bit of like waverness in his ability to socialize with people, autism coded, and his ability to make these connections and keep these connections. Lance is there to fill in that hole for him. And so they become kind of like 2 pieces of a whole, and we see them together almost all the time, seasons 1 through 3. Oh, what? You want to know about season 4 and like beyond? Well, before we get to all that, however, let's go back to the outside real world to see how Klance was doing out there. So like any really popular show at the time, Comic-Con was a really big place to show off announcements, trailers, and cast interviews, etc., etc. To this day, if we ever invent time machines, I want to go back to do nothing other than to go back to, was it 2019, I think, Comic-Con, where the last Adventure Time panel was, to get to hear Rebecca Sugar sing Time Adventure live for the first time. And also to drag Jeremy Shada by his coiffed hair and bring him to that panel. Even as the diehard Voltron fan that I was so fucking pissed off. He's the voice of Lance, by the way. I was so pissed off when he, the main character of Adventure Time, he voices Finn, by the way, was not at the final Adventure Time panel because he was at a fucking Voltron panel. Okay, correction. Actually, he was there for most of it, but he left like right at the end because of the scheduling conflict with a Voltron panel. I still want to die because this is the most fucking important part, okay? I'm totally not crying rewatching this panel again. No! I will never, ever, ever forgive Voltron for its many transgressions, and this is one of them. Anyway, at these events, there's always one or two fans who are always going to do the cringy thing and ask the cast uncomfortable questions about ships and online discourse that they probably know nothing about. But surprisingly, this go around, and as, you know, unfortunately, fandom and just internet spaces start to get more and more big, they knew about Klance. Oh, they knew about Klance. Now, here's the thing. Most of the time, people know about these ships. If you work on a show, you know about these ships. You spend time online, and especially as people started to get more and more chronically online, as we all are now, there's no way to not see things like that, you know? And so people would ask, I think multiple people have asked, like the cast and crew, how they felt about Klance. And I only really remember Jeremy Shada's like response because he is the voice of Lance. And he was just like, yeah, I like it. I love it. I'd be on board. And here's the issue. A lot of people point to this as queerbaiting. Now let's talk about queerbaiting. Was this show queerbaiting with specifically Klance, and well, something else we'll get to later, is one of the most hotly debated topics today. I asked you in the forum if you thought Klance was queerbaiting, and here are your guys' answers. Nobody has a yes or no. Like, it's not unanimously yes or no. It's split pretty evenly. But what even is queerbaiting and why does it matter? Well, Wikipedia defines queerbaiting as a marketing technique for fiction and entertainment in which creators hint at but do not depict same-sex romance or other LGBTQ plus representation. Essentially, where creators are going to be like, hey guys, we may or may not have gay people in our show. We know that you guys really like this character that may have been like a little bit queer-coded, and maybe we'll do something with it. Maybe we'll actually say that they're queer-coded. Who knows? Maybe you should keep watching and supporting us and buying our merch and yada 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 and find out. And then you get to the end of the show and cast does this. Yeah. Now, the thing about this is that I think a lot of people miss the fact that this is about creators of the show. People saw that Jeremy Shada clip of him being like, yeah, you know, Klance is cool. I'd totally be down to do that. And thought that they were actually going to get representation in the show because a voice actor said that they'd be down to play Klance just in general, or Lance as a gay character. This happens like all the time. Y'all do know that, right? Like, take Star Wars, the newest Star Wars trilogy, for example. Finn and Poe was a very, very, very big ship, and it had a lot of legs to stand on, especially in the first movie. Oscar Isaac and John Boyega later came out to say that they would have absolutely loved to play Finn and Poe as being in some type of relationship or just being gay in general. And they saw it as much as the fans saw it. And that is my Roman Empire. The new Star Wars trilogy, new era Star Wars trilogy will be my Roman Empire forever and ever and ever. But that's a different video for a different day, okay? But my point still stands that you cannot rely on voice actors who may or may not have any type of sway in the creation of their show. They may get to like change a few lines here and there if they're really feeling the character, but they're not always going to get the bottom line say in a character. In fact, I would argue most times they're not going to get the say in what happens in a character. If a person who voices a random character in Genshin Impact comes out and is like, yeah, I think Paimon is actually trans. And you're like, yeah, that's been my headcanon for so long. But do you actually think that Hoyoverse is gonna make Paimon trans? No, right? But then again, like I said, this is the new age version of fandom. So a lot of people, unfortunately, took this as gospel. And of course, when Klance ended up not happening, people called queerbaiting.
Bakudeku didn't get clanced because to be clanced, it would had to have been close to being canon. Wait, I know what you're saying. You're saying, oh, the chemistry, the blah, 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 like it was there. I fully agree with you. However, they was never going to make them canon because if they did, they would have had to age up the story. And I don't mean like the characters, I mean for the people that actually read it. It would no longer be considered kid material and it would need to go to adults, geared towards adults. And that's not what it was for. So that's why I never feel it. And on top of that, you cannot just say, oh, it got Klance when it comes to a queer couple not getting together. Because in Klance, in the context of Klance, I know you're saying, Alicia, how are you able to give us, baby? I was there when Voltron dropped. I am a veteran. Unfortunately, I am still locked into that hellhole. I just read a Klance fic last night. Those are my credibilities. But to understand Klance is to know that you had animators talking about it. You had people that was working on the storyboard talking and drawing about it. This was not just fandom. This was the actual team themselves. And what really propelled it was this. You all don't remember the ancient text, but I do, because I was there. Every single one of these, except for Lance's with the LGBTQ, they all lightly brushed over in their stories, except this one. And that led a lot of people to believe, because of that and the chemistry that they had between Keith was something. I don't have to tell y'all the ancient text. I can remember it. I was there. Don't question me, witch. Do not tell me about the laws. I was there when it was written.
However, some people who did work on the show did also see Klance and like Klance. There was a time where right after the show came out, there were like, I think 2 or 3 artists who worked on the show as like storyboard artists put out like Klance, like fan art. This one still is like my favorite, and it's from a person's Tumblr that is now scrubbed, and I can't do anything about it, and I'm so sad. I wish, because I really like this art style, and I wish I could just find them on Tumblr, but I can't because like many other people, they scrubbed their shit off the face of the earth, or they just have a different art like account that isn't this anymore. But like, I totally get it. I do get it. Now, unfortunately, to the detriment of creators of things, acknowledging a ship, especially at a show or movie or whatever that is as big as Voltron was at the time, was a dangerous game to play. I understand, especially for the creators, they wanted to be like, hey guys, we see you, we understand you, like we know where you're coming from with that. However, at the end of the day, this was a DreamWorks product, and as we will see later, DreamWorks had a lot to say about the things that were going on in this fucking show, which like makes sense. They technically, well, they don't own the rights to Voltron, but they own the show, right? And I'm trying to give the people, especially the executive producers and people who had real sway in the show and the way that it went, trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, giving them the whole corporate out here, and also the fact that we have to ask ourselves, if they never acknowledged the ship at all, would that be considered queerbaiting? Would you consider it queerbaiting? No, you probably just be like, this character is queer coded. And so it's the acknowledgement there that is kind of like a catch-22 of like, you want to tell your audience, yeah, we see you, we totally do. But also at the same time, you may not have the power to change it, even if you are an executive producer. And you may be like, that's kind of crazy. Aren't they the executive producers? We need to talk about Shiro again. So a lot of people debate about where the show started its downfall. Some people say that it started right after season 3, which is crazy because the show has 8 seasons. Some people say it started after season 6, and season 7 and 8 were the downfall, because they can point to directly the person who was like the head writer on the show left, and he apparently left like a whole Bible for them to go by, and apparently that was kind of just like tossed out, and they did their own thing for the last 2 seasons. I'm inclined to believe a little bit of a mixture of both. And with that, we have to go back to Klance and figure out what happened to them post season 3. Now, post season 3, you may be like, okay, where's the rest of their like interactions with each other? They're gone. They're literally gone. Keith leaves the team. He leaves the team because he finds out that he's half Galra. Remember that evil alien race I was talking about? Yeah. He finds out that he's half Galran and needs to go on a soul-searching journey, and also joins this like random like resistance group of other Garans who are like, because not all Garans are bad, obviously. So he joins this like resistance group of like other Garans who want to like help restore peace to the universe and yada yada yada. Ask me how I feel about that plotline. Now, in the beginning, it was fine. Keith, being the Red Ranger that he is, I was totally fine with him going through this all, right? Even leaving the team for a while and coming back. Okay, where do I begin? So let's talk about something called the Red Ranger syndrome. And it's something that I kind of made up, but I feel like somebody else has probably already talked about this. And it's basically a version of like main character syndrome, except for the fact that this was heavily pushed to sell toys, except that this is like a character who gets a very specific archetype and like stereotype placed upon them. They go through a very similar arc as like, you know, the Red Ranger type of like stereotypical arc thing. They get all the coolest gadgets, they get all of the coolest things, right? All the other characters kind of get sidelined for the sake of this character, usually because they are the most popular. Now we know now that the most popular character was Shiro, and he also kind of gets Red Ranger towards the end of the show. But at this point in time, Keith gets so Red Rangered that they give him a wolf. A wolf. Now, where have we seen this before? Oh, yeah, that's right. So when I was doing my little Ninjago, little deep dive, and I was watching the show, I haven't finished the show, but the season I watched happened to be the season where Lloyd, after like his whole thing with Garmadon, right, gets to go on this self-searching adventure. He's alone, except for a wolf. And he gets to go on this like self-isolating like hero's journey of sorts where he is a lone wolf and he's doing his own thing, except he gets a companion in another wolf. And then when they come back to the team, they've changed and everybody kind of like doesn't know how to deal with it. And it's because they've written this character now like so far in the other direction of where they were going, like in terms of like warming them up to being social and warming them up to have more of like a social personality within the group and really fitting in the group. And it's really hard to fit them back into that. And that's exactly what happened with Keith. Keith and Lance do get a few more pieces of screen time, especially when Keith comes back, and then Shiro also comes back, and now Laura at some point becomes a part of the main team of lions. So now we got too many bodies and not enough lions. What the fuck are we gonna do? And at that point, people are talking about whether or not who should leave the crew, yada yada yada. And Lance offers himself up because he believes again that he is not worthy enough to be a part of this crew. Do you think that area of thinking ever really gets solved? No. And I think that's another reason why Klance gets shipped so heavily, because the only closure we get on that line of thinking that he has, which he's had since the beginning, by the way, he has had this type of thinking, this I'm not good enough to be here type of thinking since the very beginning. And there are moments in each of the seasons, especially the first 3, where we see Lance go through that. However, because they decided that 4 through 6 was going to be the Keith show, we no longer get that. We no longer get that. And so you can't even be mad that people started shipping Shiro and Keith a lot more, because it became their show. Like, it literally did. If it wasn't about Shiro at the moment, it was about Keith. And then for a second there, also about Lotor, which is just another Gullring character you don't even need to worry about. So the last few remnants of Klance that we get is that conversation. People call it the math conversation. It's literally just Lance and Keith having a conversation, and Keith comforts Lance and is like, no, you belong here. Like, you need to be here. You have strengths here. And that's the only closure you get on that arc of Lance's character, because you don't get any other arc again. Him being a sharpshooter, gone. Because now he's the Red Lion and he has a sword. Whatever. Him being a sharpshooter, gone. Him seeing Shiro in the astral plane, and that's supposed to be this whole clue to, by the way, okay, this whole thing with Shiro is that he gets captured again. They make clones. They had like 1 billion clones of him, and one of the clone ones was the one that came back to the thing. It was actually a pretty interesting storyline in the beginning that Shiro wasn't Shiro, and especially as a person who's already going through so much PTSD, it was a lot. It was a lot, but I think they dragged it out. Like, the Keith plotline just way too long, and other characters, namely Hunk and Lance, got extremely shafted. Up until this point, seasons 1 through 3, it felt like every character was gonna get a season, right? Allura got her season, Pidge got her season, and it just felt like, especially with the stuff, the way season 3 ended and things like that, it just really felt like Lance was going to get his own season, and then Hunk was going to get his own season, and that just didn't happen. Both of these characters got their own moments. I think Hunk even got an episode or 2, but no real progress on their character was made. By the end of the show, these two characters especially, their character development it was a flat line. A flat fucking line. And it sucks because at the end, it feels like Lance never really got to come into his own character. And we see that Keith was a big, huge part of what was supposed to be that character development. So again, it is no wonder people shipped them so much. And because of what we actually got, it is no wonder that people shipped she so much. And the tensions started to slowly rise. So imagine that you're seeing, especially starting from season 4, as a fan, you're starting to see that Klance is getting less and less attention because Keith is off doing butt fuck knows what, right? But Shiro is also starting to get a lot more of an attention, right? And slowly, Shiro and Keith start to have a lot more screen time with each other. Do you see where I'm going here? Do you see like why there were fights breaking out on Tumblr every single fucking day? So Klance fans at this point were wondering, okay, so where is this like gay representation that apparently has been hinted at this entire time? Well, now keep in mind this was still 2016. Gay marriage was just legalized like 2 years ago, and being woke is now being under attack because again, it's 2016. And as for entertainment, we're still on Love Simon levels of like representation, all right? Like we're slowly getting there, but it's going to be a long haul, especially for children's media. Like Steven Universe is still breaking new grounds, okay? Like Steven Universe was still out here telling people that it's okay to show gay people to children, all right? Like we getting gay representation, especially in a kid show at this point in time, was very like so where was this gay representation that was being hinted at by people and by creators and by voice actors, all this other type of stuff, yada yada yada? Where was this supposed to come from? Well, we gotta talk about Shiro again. So yeah, Shiro is gay. Can you see that says gay over there? Yeah. He's gay. And I found out very recently through reading some articles and going through the wiki that apparently Shiro being gay and his fiance Adam were supposed to be announced way back in season 2. But that didn't happen because the executives were just like, no, we don't know. So apparently he was always planned to be gay, but because of the executive meddling, they were just like, okay, we're gonna have to hold off on it for a while. But they knew that eventually they want to tell that story of Shiro being gay. So okay, fine, sure, you know. Also, Shiro was supposed to die, which is why we got Shiro going missing after a while. It's because he was supposed to die. He was supposed to die, and then Allure takes over, being the red lion. Keith goes to the black lion, right? Like that's how that was supposed to go. In fact, there were many different conversations that happened between Shiro and Keith in the early ages about Keith stepping up and being a leader. Right. So they also realized that they can't kill off their gay rep, right? And also at the same time, the executives were like, Shiro is the best character. He's our best character in terms of like performance. People love him. He's the fan favorite. You cannot kill him off. I need you to let that sink in. They were not allowed to kill Shiro off because he was the fan favorite. And that explains the entire downfall of this show. I hope you know that. Because when I tell you the Shiro push that happened, his story was over after a while. Like it just was, which makes sense that they wanted to kill him off. When a character's story is done, you need to get them out of the story one way or another. Either end it, have them leave, or have them die, right? Like kill your darlings. You know, we all heard the term. Shiro not being able to die was the craziest thing that I learned out of all of this. Not even the fact that they had planned Shiro to be gay this entire time and, you know, executive meddling, we hear about that all the fucking time. It's the fact that Shiro was supposed to die and they said no. Like Shiro's corpse has to be paraded around for 6 more seasons. Oh my god. But you know, I guess it worked out because if they killed off Shiro, then they'd be killing off their gay amputee PTSD vet, and that wouldn't look very good. So I guess it all worked out in the end in terms of looking bad, except it didn't. except it fucking didn't. Because Adam, who was Shiro's fiance, they weren't married yet. Shiro's fiance, who had like a really interesting backstory with Shiro, they finally get announced in season 7 that Shiro is gay and that he has a fiance who like was waiting for him back home. Actually, that's a lie. He wasn't waiting for him. This was the interesting part of the story. So Adam was Shiro's fiance. Shiro had a terminal illness. Was it terminal or chronic? I think it was terminal. And basically every time he went up into space, it was making it worse. However, going into space is his dream. It's his dream to be a pilot. And so Adam offers an ultimatum, which I think is very like reasonable in this situation because your loved one could fucking die. And so he's like, if you're going to keep going up there, I'm not going to be here when you return because I don't want a lover who I barely ever see any of the time. And also at the same time could possibly die from doing the thing that prevents me from seeing them all the time. It was actually like a pretty good, like interesting, like backstory going on. We know nothing about Adam past that. Nothing. You want to know why? Because in seasons 7 and 8, the Galrins finally invade Earth. So now it's like, oh, Earth is in danger. We have to save Earth, which like from a writing standpoint, fucking sucked because we have this entire show just being galaxy level threats the entire time. Galaxy universal level threats the entire time. And the final threat we have to deal with is Earth being in danger. Babes, Oh, it didn't work. It did not work. But that's another story for another day. That's a 3-hour video essay that I'm gonna make sometime. Don't worry about it. But anyway, so Shiro's fiance, Adam, is also a pilot in this garrison. He gets sent out to go fight the fucking Galrans. He dies. So in an effort to not do bury your gays, they end up burying their gays. And so now Shiro has to deal with the fact that he is a gay amputee PTSD vet and a widow. Okay, so people were like upset about that, and obviously rightly so. I don't know whose decision obviously it was to kill off Adam. It was not a good decision, and I think they knew that it wasn't a good decision. Like I have nothing to say about that. It's obviously not a fucking good decision. And so you may be asking, what the fuck does this have to do with clans? Because, well, now we have a gay Shiro. And the sheath, like, I need you to understand what was happening in the fandom at this time. As the show started to decline, people started getting more and more rabid. Like, this is like a kettle about to fucking explode. Like, people were getting more and more rabid. The fights were getting more and more, like, crazy. People were getting death threats. Like, people who worked on the show, voice actors, artists, yada, yada, yada. They were getting death threats. But anyway, and so it was getting, like, at this point, people who were online at the time, especially on Tumblr, if you weren't in the Voltron fandom, you at least heard about what the fuck was going on in Voltron fandom. If you have a fandom, like a Voltron fandom story, even if it's not yours, drop it down below, because I've heard a couple, but I didn't want to like bog this down with that. So like, if you have any, let me know down in the comments below. But like, yeah, it was bad. It was getting really, really bad. And as the show started to decline, and especially in season 7, when Shiro came out as to be the one who was gay. Oh, I also forgot to mention, when they said that, oh, we wanted to kill Shiro off, but he is our gay rep, they were like, well, maybe our gay rep can be elsewhere. It was a heavily theorized and basically like accepted canon among the entire fandom that Lance is bisexual. And so at this point, and it had really good legs to stand on, like really good legs to stand on. Between like Karan, which was like the orange guy, Altayan, that hung out with Allura a lot, he said to Lance like, hey, at one point, just like, there would be so many alien beauties for you to like behold, or like whatever the fuck, into some random conversation they were having. Never mentions a gender, just that there are alien beauties out there. Lance being a flirt with literally every single person that he meets, including Keith, especially in the comics. Girl, I would have blown a gasket had I seen this interview back then, because I am a bisexual Lance King truther. Okay? As a pansexual myself, I was one of those truthers. So if I had seen that at the time, I would have lost my fucking mind, because why didn't you just make it him then? Even if we still had to keep Shiro alive, you did not need to make his like fiance, him being gay at all. Like, they were saying we could also leave it ambiguous. That also would have been really good, right? But instead you had a fiance and then he had to get killed off. Okay. It got so bad in the fandom that genuinely people believed that it was something that they tried to shoehorn in at the last second, which they kind of did, but like that it was never planned in the first place. People said that, and said that Adam was actually his roommate and not his fiance, and that's why it made sense that he died. And this was such a popular thing in the fandom at the time that I believed it, because I was like 18 at the time, I think, and I just was like, oh yeah, sure. If someone says it with confidence on the internet, I'm probably gonna believe it. So I believed heavily that that's what it was. So much so that when I was doing research for this and I was writing stuff down in the script, I was like, oh yeah, no, isn't that how it happened? And then I read this and been like, no, that's not how it happened. I genuinely thought that that was his roommate, and because they had already finished the like animation and stuff, they couldn't change the fact that Adam died, so they just made him his fiance anyway and didn't care about the consequences. No. Like, that is just how much we were coping back then with this show going to shit, okay? So at that point, it's like you could have just made Lance like bisexual, right? And why didn't they? Well, because Lance ends up with Allura. Now, Lance has been flirting with Allura this entire time. He like clearly likes her. He got jealous of Lotor, again, that Garin dude you don't need to worry about. The Garin guy he tells you not to worry about. He loved Allura, right? But Allura really never gave him the time of day. Like, she also gave off this air of being mature, as being slightly older than the rest of them. And so honestly, I thought like Shiro and Allura were the same age. I know some people like shipped them together because, again, thought they were the same age. But anyway, and at the end of the show, just like, I think in season 7, like very close to the end of the show, suddenly they are together. They share a kiss. And that's about it. And oh my God, do het ships piss me off. I like Lance and Allura. However, it did not have enough legs to stand on. And I was actually having a conversation with somebody in my comments over my last video, not like a bad conversation, just a conversation about why people hate het ships so much, why queer people tend to hate het ships so much. And it's not necessarily hate, it's just that the shit is boring. It's just mad boring. It's mad fucking boring, that to the point where sometimes it borderlines on fucking like what's the word I'm looking for? It borderlines on like misogyny a lot of the time, actually, when it comes to these het ships, because these characters just look in each other's direction. And meanwhile, and I was talking in that comment about a TikTok I saw about people will say that like gay ships are platonic when we have like all this like romantic subtext in the world, but it's platonic, but two people just happen to be a different gender, male, female, and they happen to look at each other, they happen to have positive feelings about each other. Oh, suddenly they're dating at the end of the show, which is essentially what happened with Lance and Allura. And I love Lance and I love Allura, and they could have been good together. It's just you had over 6 seasons to make their romance actually a thing, and you didn't. The only thing that they did was make Lance jealous when Lotor came into the picture. That shit pissed me off to no fucking end. So at this point, nobody's winning. All right. Like Shiro at this point also has been noted to be much older than we originally thought that he was. Again, he has a fiance. Again, well, let's just say this. He you know, says a certain thing. Actually, Keith says a certain thing to Shiro in the last season when Shiro goes like crazy, and it rhymes with "you're my schmother." I still to this day, tinfoil hat, think that was intentional. I think that was intentional. Lance and Allura getting together was also intentional, but like Keith saying to Shiro, "I love you, pregnant pause, you're my brother," was also intentional in a way that is like more insidious. I think that's my tinfoil hat theory, and I'm taking that to the grave because so in that way nobody won, right? And that way nobody fucking won. Klance was not canon king ever. It just wasn't gonna happen. Lance was off the menu because he has a dead girlfriend now. Don't even get me started on that shit. Don't even get me started on that shit. The only like black character in the show, by the way, gone. Oh, I mean, Hunk is like racially ambiguous, but I think a lot of people think he's Samoan, and I also subscribe to that theory. So the only black person in the show dies, by the way. And of course, then Shiro. So you're like, okay, Klance isn't gonna work out. so we got Sheath, right? No. Number one, they've been heavily stamped as brothers, and on top of that, Shiro gets married to some random man named Curtis, who was in the background of a few episodes. Yeah, did they even have a conversation with each other? Anyway, let's talk about the aftermath. So the aftermath of this, people were mad. I was mad, but that was the first time I ever watched a show to the very end, and in real time was like, oh, I don't like that. Like, that wasn't good. I am very dissatisfied with that ending to the point where I don't think it's good. Not even my own personal opinion. Because usually it takes me a while. Usually it takes me years to be like, oh, well, maybe that show wasn't that good. Maybe that movie wasn't that good, but I still love it anyway. No, Voltron was one of those things the day it ended, I was like, oh no. Especially because I was in the fandom at the time. Day one, there, in the fandom, I knew what the fuck was about to happen. And Tumblr fucking exploded. There were people disowning the entire fucking show, deleting their entire fucking vlogs. They had Klance blogs all gone. Most of them fucking gone, disappeared off the face of the earth. You had people immediately starting rewrites. Immediately. Not even off the basis of the show being bad, just the fact that Klance didn't get together. They were starting entire rewrites. There were people who were crying racism, and honestly, I kind of believe it. Like, it's not good semantics, because Lance becomes a farmer. He quits his dream. Again, we talked about this at the beginning of the video. He has a fucking dream to become a pilot. This is his thing that he wants so fucking bad, and he gets to do it. He went through all of this, what was supposed to be character development of feeling inadequate, and now he's like a hero, and he's done it, right? He's gone through all of this. He quits to go be a farmer. And I have a lot to say about all of that, but namely the fact that they give him a stereotypically Hispanic large family because he's Cuban. And I'm like, if you're gonna do that, at least make it like a successful story for people who are like children of immigrants. The fact that he went to this place, and if we're gonna like be seriously stereotypical about it, he's probably one of the first people in his family to ever do something like that. And so for him to quit that dream is even like doubly bad, that you're gonna make him like a stereotype. So yeah, the people who are saying like racism and him becoming a farmer, I see you. I see you, and yeah, no, yeah, it's not great. It's not fucking great, babes. It's not great. I saw people literally take Lance and Keith, rename them something, which that also had like controversy about being racist because they just named them very stereotypical like Hispanic and Asian names. And that was a whole controversy on Tumblr, like right after it happened. There was so much going on that I cannot get it all. Again, if you have any stories, especially about the fallout of what happened right after the show ended, oh girl, it was bad. And of course, people were sending death threats. They were like threatening other people. It got so bad. Like people were throwing catfights in this. People were like, you can't ship Sheath anymore because they were literally said that they were brothers in the thing and yada, yada, yada. It got real bad. It got real fucking bad. It got real bad, which is funny because some people will be like, well, we're disowning season 7 and 8, but then those same people will be like, you can't ship Sheath anymore because they said they were brothers. And I was like, I thought we were disowning 7 and 8. Are we disowning or are we not disowning it? You know, like we need to, hello? Anyway. And so from this implosion of the fandom at this point and the end of the show and knowing that there wasn't really going to be anything else after that, I think there was like rumors of a movie that started filming, but it's a live action movie that has nothing to do with this plot because this plot belongs to DreamWorks. Voltron does not belong to DreamWorks. Obviously I don't think I ever said this, but Voltron is a reboot of an anime. I don't think I ever said that Voltron is a reboot of an anime and like a toy line and like all this other stuff. That's how like unimportant it was to the story. But like so DreamWorks doesn't own the Voltron IP, but they do own this plot line. And so this plot line is never going to be seen again. These characters, specifically in the way that they were written for the show, are never going to be seen again. That does not mean that you can't ship Klance in a different universe. You know how we are. Will you fall in love with me? Yeah, any universe. So like here's the saying that it's not gonna happen, but like yeah, it pretty much died after that. Some people like watched the show later and were like, I ship Klance and things like that, which brings me to today. So the reason why I even started this in the first place is I kept seeing Klance shit on my timeline. Like people are still drawing Klance to this day, but some people started drawing Klance again, and so now we have people talking about Klance again. I see Klance on my TikToks so much now. And you know what? I'm here for it. You know, we can take this back, make it our own thing, yada, yada, yada. I'm totally fine with that. I'm okay with that. I don't really care for rewrites, all right? Like, I'm not the type of person who reads canon complaint, like, ever. If a show sucked, it sucked, and, like, whatever. Like, I get it. I get the urge, though, to, like, want to rewrite it, because you're just, like, ugh. Especially Voltron. Voltron was known as being, like, the peak, like, potential man. You know, you guys seen that meme, potential man, going around? That was Voltron. Voltron, especially the first 3 seasons, literal perfection. After that, who's to say? Who's to fucking say? And so what did we learn? I feel like despite how crazy this show and this ship was, there's actually a lot we can learn from it as queer people in fandom and just fandom in general, right? Number one is that this show and this ship is a marker of how far we've come and how far we have yet to go. Unfortunately, one of the main things that riled me up about making my last video was this idea of there being too many gay ships. And I think this is a testament to the fact that there is not. Like, and when they talk about too many gay ships, they mean like also in canon and things like that. Representation, it's been 10 years since gay marriage was legalized in America. Representation is being constantly rolled back. Disney didn't even want to put Pleakley, I think the yellow alien from Lilo and Stitch, they didn't even want to make him wear a dress in the fucking movie anymore, because that is how much they're like, just fuck that DEI bullshit, like right now. So I need y'all to be so serious when you say that there's too many gay ships, because this and this whole debacle just tells you how much queer people, especially young queer people, want good representation and how much we are like, we see it. We're not going crazy when we say like Klance had legs to stand on. It absolutely did. And I think that we as queer people need to continue to fight for that and shut down these naysayers and people like that person who was like, there's too many gay ships out there, because it's not getting us anywhere, right? Like, and obviously, you know, be the change you want to see in the world. But also, I don't think it's bad to want to ask for queer representation, especially where you can see it. Like, you could, like it was there. It was there, babes. Like, it wasn't not there. It was there so much that people made fucking fan art out of it that worked on the show. You know? Like, so that's Klance. in a nutshell, I didn't mean to be filming for this long. I've been filming for over an hour. I really, really, really didn't mean to be filming this long. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you did, you are a real one. Let me know down below how you feel about Klance, how you feel about Voltron. I will eventually make that video essay about Klance. I'm not Klance, Voltron, and it will probably be like 3 hours long. I'm not joking. If this was already like an hour long, like hopefully I can edit it down to less than an hour, but like there's a lot to say here. It's just a lot. There was a lot going on. The next one will be Korosami. Yeah, I know. Into the fire, out of the pan, into the fire, into the flames, whatever the fucking saying is. The next one will be Korosami. So if you have anything to say about Korosami, put it in the comments, or better yet, put it in the form that I will have in the description box of this video. I'm getting ahead of the curve because I have to film these videos every single week now. So I put myself to that task. It's not like I have to do it. I'm the one who wants to do it because I want to put all these videos out during Pride Month. So if you have anything to say about Korosami, or if there's another ship that you're like, hey, I want you to do that, also fill out the form down below. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know how you felt about Klance. It will never leave me alone. It will haunt you forever. So thank you so much for watching again, and hey, I will see you in the next episode. Love and peace. Hello. I hope you enjoy this new angle. I am in a new place, obviously. And this is kind of the only corner in this room that I can film in right now. Like, if you could see the other side of this camera, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to worry about that right now. Shiro, the kids miss you.